Cayman,
Yes.
this is something that you had brought to me. We discussed a little bit on Twitter privately, so you can't go find our conversation if you're
You
interested.
probably don't want to. It's a lot
You
of
probably
us
don't want to.
talking about each other's butts.
Yeah, we just kept saying every other sentence, just interrupting each other, talking about each other's butts.
Yeah.
But I'm pulling now from Victoria Kennedy at Eurogamer. This is about the EU, the European Union, making huge changes to handheld gaming. New handheld gaming consoles, such as future versions of the Nintendo Switch and Steam Deck, will need to have replaceable batteries by 2027, the EU has said. This comes as part of new regulation laid out by the Council of the European Union, which aims to, quote, regulate the entire life cycle of batteries, end quote, to ensure they are, quote, safe, sustainable, and competitive, end quote. The idea is batteries are easier to replace and recycle with a guarantee that, quote, portable batteries incorporated into appliances should be removable and replaceable by the end user, end quote, within new devices from 2027 onwards. The regulation says this timeframe gives sufficient time for operators to adapt the design of their products to this requirement, calling it an important provision for consumers. While handheld gaming devices are not mentioned specifically in the documentation, an EU representative confirmed to Overkill, quote, the batteries of gaming handhelds are covered by the batteries and waste batteries regulation, end quote. Further documentation stated a portable battery shall be considered readily removable by the end user, where it can be removed from a product with the use of commercially available tools without requiring the use of specialized tools unless provided free of charge with the product. It kind of goes on in a bunch of different ways, but essentially, this is saying it is better for the environment if these batteries can be removable and replaceable. I don't quite understand the science behind it, but I'm going to trust them because this is being led by some green commission of the EU. But I think that the interesting thing that kind of this brings to us, so they say by 2027 and beyond, by the year 2027, a new Switch will have come out. And by the year 2027, we would likely have been multiple years into the next Switch. But I find it difficult to believe that a Switch would release and then a couple years into the cycle, release a new version of the hardware that lets you remove the battery. Which begs the question for me, do we think this delays a Switch 2 so that it launches from, let's just say 2025 with a removable battery? Or do you think that kind of what I thought wouldn't be the case, let's say they release next year and then in 2027, here's Switch 2.1 where you can remove the battery? Like, what do you kind of see as the future here, Cayman, based on this story from the EU?
So first things first, I think we need to calibrate our brains in terms of releasing consoles. Because here's the thing, Patrick. We've already gotten a second Switch. We're technically on the third Switch right now.
That is true. That is true. The OLED is the third Switch.
So is it possible? 100%. They could release a Switch 2 that comes out. And it could come out as early. I mean, my estimation was we would get one this year. I was wrong, obviously. Or at least I'm still technical. I mean, who knows what could happen.
Hey, anything can happen.
I think I'm wrong. However, I do think like next year there's got to be one, right? That gives them 3 years. I don't know how this works.
Sure.
Look,
you don't make Switches yourself.
Yeah, I'm not an engineer. I don't know. I'm assuming it's very difficult. But at the same time, I'm also like, there's people much smarter than me that probably know how to do this. And there's probably a world in which they already have a design spec of the ability to have that built. Just even if they weren't even planning on releasing it, that's just something, right? So I could definitely see a world in which we get a new Switch next year. And then by 2027, we get the Switch 2 point whatever. Or the Switch with the removable battery. It's a terrible name, but maybe that's what they call it. See, I could see them doing it. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. Part of me wonders if the reason why they're like it is more like eco-friendly to have a removable battery is because you can just take the battery off of like a Switch or whatever handheld, Whereas like now you essentially have to like destroy it to try to get to it. And then
Sure.
like, what is the damage being there? We are getting better with our ability to do things. I mean, I will say that like I was reading it, this is a few months ago, I was reading it was like the original Prius's battery was like one of the most eco unfriendly things in the world. But
Yeah.
like now they've gotten to a point where it's like actually recycling a new Prius battery is much more like you can actually do it where the first one you can't. It just sits in a landfill.
Right.
The question is like, and this is I think it's a bigger problem is do they do it at all anyway? Are they just like, go fuck yourselves, we'll pay the fines, we don't give a shit? Because we
Yeah,
know
sure.
corporations just do that. They're like, we make enough money to not give a flying fuck.
Sure.
Eat ass. And
There
they
is
just do whatever they want.
There is a thing later in the article that I think kind of helps answer that question of is it the full, like having to replace it,
Mhm.
which I think probably is still part of it. But they say batteries, excuse me, got a little frog in there. Batteries are key to the decarbonization process and the EU's shift towards zero emission modes of transport. At the same time, end of life batteries contain many valuable resources, and we must be able to reuse those critical raw materials
Ooh.
instead of relying on third countries for supplies. Third countries for supplies. I don't know if that's a
Third world.
maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, because I think that we don't say that anymore. I think.
Oh, well then I'm
But
sorry.
No. I think that's, as you said. I was like, oh right. I think for that, it's been decided that is.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Well, I learn something new every day, Patrick.
Yeah, every day. Hey, I've said worse on this podcast.
We've edited out worse on this.
Exactly. So yeah, it's interesting. I think you're right though. As you kind of speak through that, especially if they do hit next year, that does give them 3 years. And I totally forgot that they released a second Switch that was just like this Switch, like charges better or something.
Or
I
it
forget what
doesn't.
it
No, it
was.
doesn't dock. It didn't dock.
Oh, well, there was that one. There was the mini, but there was a second. There was a version 2 of the Switch that
You're
wasn't
right.
the OLED, and it was something to do with the battery. I
Yeah,
forget
it
what
was.
it was.
Yeah, the battery life was. It was like stopped. It was like the battery wasn't, or the Switch wasn't warping because they had like
Right.
some like cooling agent or something involved. But yeah, you're right. So technically, like a fourth version of the Switch now.
Yeah. So then so I guess maybe something that we don't know as consumers or as lay consumers is, I guess these batteries in these consoles are like really fucking bad for the environment.
I mean, yeah. I mean, these lithium-ion batteries are not good.
Yeah.
That's definitely not good. But I think if we think about this though, if we remove like the context of all of it and just look at like consumer vision, right? Blinders on to impact of nature, which I think we don't need to do that because our world's literally on fire right now.
Yes.
Like actually on fire. So I think if you just are a fucking dickhead and you just put blinders on, you're like, I don't care about the environment. I just care about my own self gratification. Honestly, it's kind of nice that say if you're on a long road trip, especially if you're someone who has a Steam Deck and the battery lasts 2 hours and that's it.
Fuck, you're right.
And you're like, I can't just constantly be charging this thing. Just pop one out, bing bang boom. Fucking roll with it, dog.
That's a good point too. Yeah, having kind of being able to carry around a second battery for and not suck the energy out of the fucking earth to recharge it. Yeah, interesting.
So, I don't know.
So yeah, we'll see. Maybe it's one of those things. Like there was a thing last year when the EU said Apple, since Apple's fucking Apple and they make their own chargers, they were like, you can't do that anymore. And that's starting to go into place next year. So maybe it's one of those things like we're really not going to see a difference. It's just business. But yeah, I hope it doesn't mean that Switch 2 is delayed, but you've convinced me it won't be.
Yeah, I really don't. I don't for like I guess the thing is if the EU is like, hey, here's the thing. You can't like once you hit 2027, no more of these can be released than like yeah, I still don't think that's gonna happen. I still think that they're gonna have. It just might be one of those where they're on shorter supply, and then all of a sudden we see like the launch with the removable batteries.
Yeah. Well, come back in 3 years, 4 years, and we'll see what happened on Spotlight Games episode 319 or whatever the fuck. Cayman, today's a quick one.
Yeah.
But we do have I did pull in some updates to the calendar, some things that are out, some things that are coming out that are releasing, etc. that I wanted to talk about. PlayStation Plus, as of today, you can play It Takes Two, your game of the year of what was that, 2 years ago? Last year? 2 years ago?
Yeah, fuck yeah. It Takes Two is amazing.
The Ascent, which is a game that I tried once. Did we play that together for like a day and then, or did I just play that alone?
I think you just played that alone.
Yeah, I only played it today. Undertale, a game that I've always wanted to play. World War Z, SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, a game that I'm definitely trying out. Fast and Furious Spy Racers, Rise of Shifter, spelled SH1FT3R, Cayman. Never heard of this fucking game, but I'm downloading it. My Little Pony, a Maritime Bay Adventure, Cayman. If you have any time, you want to review that for the pod next week, I'd love that. And Sniper Elite 5, all up today on PlayStation Plus if you have that. Oh, and Twisted Metal 1 and 2, I guess ahead of the show coming out. And then some Game Pass editions. We got Tectonica and Toem today. Tectonica is a pre-release or like an early access game, but Toem is a game that came out, I think it was last year or 2 years ago. It looks cool. It's like a black and white indie like photography, cute, cozy game. So I want to check that out. And then a game that we wouldn't have talked about on the podcast, but you and I talked about a long time ago, Maquette, which launched on PlayStation years ago. July 19th coming to Game Pass. And on July 31st, one of the best games ever made, Celeste, coming to Game Pass. So if you've never played Celeste, give that a shake on Game Pass if you have it. And then two other things I wanted to mention today. Viewfinder, a game I talked about on the podcast a few weeks ago, out on PlayStation. Might be out on other places, but I only know of PlayStation. Downloading on my PlayStation tonight. Hopefully I'll be able to talk about that next week. I've heard it's only like 2 or 2.5 hours. So I might be able to do a full review again next week for Viewfinder. And then also a little sad news, or not sad news, but news to share about a game being taken off Game Pass that I know my wife plays and some of people in our audience play. 2 Point Campus leaving Game Pass into this month. So if that's a game that you play, also Marvel's Avengers, although I think that game is dead anyway, and The Ascent. I guess The Ascent is leaving Game Pass to go to PlayStation. I guess PlayStation gave them a better deal than Xbox could. So that's leaving Game Pass at the end of this month.
Patrick.
Cayman.
Can I bring in one last?
Come on, we're only 44 minutes in. Bring it in, baby.
I'm gonna bring one last story in, Patrick. This comes from Ted Litchfield at PC Gamer.
Ooh.
And this is something that I think it just will tie in last week's episode together.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit more about Baldur's Gate 3, Patrick.
Let's go.
All right, so this is from Ted Litchfield at PC Gamer. The title of the article is "The 6 Weirdest, Most Exciting Subclasses in Baldur's Gate 3 That You Can't Wait to Play." I'm just going to briefly run through these because here's the thing. You said I could fuck a bear. Honestly, intrigued.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Not sold on the game. Hear me out.
Listening.
Okay. I'm just going to briefly run through this. So there's six subclasses. So here's the thing a little bit about Baldur's Gate 3 to give you a little bit of it. It's Baldur's Gate 3 is a lot like Diablo in the sense of like it is like a traditional kind of dungeon crawler. But where Diablo is very linear to the terms of like you have like just that's your class and then you can slightly change it. Baldur's Gate really goes out of its way to be like super immersive. It's like a true immersive sim. So number 1 is College of Swords Bard. What is it? It is a jack of all trades spellcaster melee damage dealer, also known as a quote-unquote blade. Pick this class if you want extensive dialogue, non-combat options, and to hold your own in melee. Basically, you're a bard who can summon a shit ton of swords and just play a guitar that shoots swords.
Yeah. Okay? Fucking bards rule.
Fucking let's go, right? This is my personal favorite, Circle of Spores Druid. What is it? Stinky Mushroom Man.
Oh boy.
Pick this class if you want to enact the will of the spore gods.
Ooh, I know you do.
A mushroom god. This is a literal quote here Stinky boys, rise up. You apparently this druid subclass is permanently surrounded by a halo of mushroom spores.
Wow.
So yeah, stinky boys, rise up. Let's go. All right, here's the third is Way of the Shadow Monk. What is it? It's a stealth and ninja themed martial artist. Pick this class if you want to move around the battlefield quickly, hitting enemies from the shadows. Essentially, you are a stealthy ninja monk, which pretty fucking cool if you ask me.
Pretty fucking cool.
Here's one of my personal favorites. Gloomstalker Ranger. What is it?
Ooh.
A shadows and darkness focused edgelord.
Oh god.
Pick this class if you want to ambush enemies from stealth whenever possible. There was something in here that's like really fucking funny about it. Basically, the picture of the character is just he's got like the old like 2008 emo haircut.
Yes, he does.
I'm just saying.
Come on.
If like your theme song while playing this isn't Hawthorne Heights, then I don't know what to do, brother. Here we go. The next one up is Oathbreaker Paladin. What is it? A paladin subclass unliked by breaking paladin law. Pick this class if you want to be a real sad sack, edgy guy with nothing to lose.
Unbelievable. These all sound incredible.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
I learned something about Baldur's Gate 3 this week that I'm actually considering playing it now because I wasn't. Like it was just a joke to me, especially with the bear fucking. And we had said, I don't think we ever talked about it on the podcast, but you saw an article that was like there's like over 200 hours of cinematics or something like that in this game. But I was reading about the gameplay of Baldur's Gate 3 and how it's like one of their goals with the game is to make it feel like D&D so much so that like you roll during conversations, you roll like during combat, and it can completely change the course of the game for you. And especially they said there's one mode, it's called Tactician mode, where the idea of this mode is for those Dungeons and Dragons games you've played where the DM is just a son of a bitch that just does everything to fuck with you. That they're like really like shit's gonna go wrong all the time for you, but that's the fun of it essentially.
That's so
Baldur's Gate 3 has me very interested because of this cool, like it just seems like a really interesting way to play a game. Like I said, it's D&D, but like a video game. Sounds cool.
I've got the final class, Patrick, and the final class is the class that I feel like I would play.
Okay,
because this is the type of class I would play in D&D.
Okay.
This is called the Wild Magic Barbarian. What is it? A barbarian who loves magic, but isn't the best at controlling it. Pick this class if you want to surprise both enemies and yourself.
Unbelievable.
Apparently, the whole build of this class, right, is that as you're just hacking and slashing away at enemies, just random magic spells that can both help and hurt you will just randomly go off.
It sounds like a really fun time,
dude.
Honestly.
That is it's just dude. I've never been like I mean, Baldur's Gate has historically been more of like a PC game.
Yeah,
but this is going to come out to all consoles, or at least PlayStation 5. I want to say it's all consoles.
I think it might. Let me double check. I think it might just be PC and PlayStation. Let me see.
Okay. Because I do know it's coming to PlayStation.
Right.
I know that for a fact. I'm not sure about Xbox. I know there's no.
Yeah, no Windows and PlayStation and Mac. So PC or computer and PlayStation.
But like the idea of like such an immersive sim like this, especially like one that's so heavily involved with the world of D&D and like rolling and like having that chance factor, you know?
Yeah.
Is so exciting to me.
Sounds cool.
It does. It sounds fucking awesome. And you get to fuck a bear. The one downside, I don't know if we addressed this last week, was like there's apparently like 376 hours of cutscenes.
Right. Yeah.
That's the one side that's like, because that's the one thing I think with Final Fantasy 16 that kills me a little bit is like, there's a lot of times where like, I'm like, I'll tell Sid we're about to sit down for dinner. I've been playing video games while she cooks. And then I'll be like, all right, yeah, let me finish this one thing and then we'll eat. And then we have to like, what we watch while we eat is a fucking Final Fantasy cutscene because it goes on 15 minutes.
Yes.
And like, I don't want to not know what's going on in the game.
Yeah. 174 hours, which
Still,
is but still insane. Like,
that is
sure, it's
wild.
technically half of what you said, but that is still longer than most any video game.
It's less than half of what I said.
Just in cutscenes.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's
no,
fucking
I'm
wild.
interested for sure. And
Yeah.
so the funny thing, so yeah, PlayStation only in terms of console. You know what day it comes out?
Oh god.
September 6th, same day that Starfield comes out. So hey, Xbox players will get to be traveling through thousands of star systems, and us on PlayStation get to fuck bears.
Fucking bears. Okay, hear me out, Patrick. The trade-off. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. As I'm working on my home theater, that was like one of the things I was like, I really want to get this done before Starfield comes out. So I can play Starfield on like a massive TV in my basement. So Sid can be upstairs playing her, putting in her her next 100 hours of D&D, and I could be in the basement. But I don't think we're gonna get that done in time for Starfield, as I realize it's only a couple months away.
I believe in you.
don't.
You got 2 months, brother.
Unless I either win the lottery or get a huge pay raise real soon. I highly doubt.
Hey, any minute now, fucking iHeartRadio is going to come kicking down our door, giving us a fat sack of cash.
Yeah.
Any minute now. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, I think I hear him on the door, so we better go. If you want to follow me, I'm at Patrick Schwag on Twitter, at PSchwag on Threads. You can follow the pod on Spot Games Pod on Twitter and Spotlight Games Pod everywhere else. Cayman, where can they follow you? Where can they follow Save Trash Cinema?
You can follow me at the Dumpster Boy on Twitter. You can follow Save Trash Cinema on all socials, including Threads. If you haven't caught up with all of the episodes we've released so far, there's like 75 of them, and at least 10 are good. So,
all right, brother. Until next week,
brother.